What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Eddie Hearn, Jai Opetaia, Oleksandr Usyk. Get this. According to Eddie Hearn, he states that Jai Opetaia is the man to beat Usyk. The only one who can give Usyk a real fight. Eddie Hearn believes Jai Opetaia is the man to finally break Usyk's unbeaten streak. Why? Because Opetaia's dominance at cruiserweight, his southpaw power, and his relentless engine has Hearn convinced that he could follow in the footsteps and potentially stop him. With Opetaia eyeing a future move to heavyweight, could he really be the one to dethrone the king? Well, let me counterpunch. You know, I recently, you guys seen the video with Team Usyk warning Moses Atoma about jumping the gun too early, trying to get a fight with Oleksandr Usyk, the pound-for-pound undisputed heavyweight king. And people would ask, well, what's the difference between, you know, Jai Opetaia and Moses? Shouldn't Team Usyk also warn Jai Opetaia? And I would say no, because for one, Jai Opetaia is like 8 years older than, or 8.5 years older than Moses Atoma. Moses Atoma just turned 21 years of age. He just became legal to drink, you know, which I wouldn't put drinking alcohol within Moses in the same sentence. You know, it's just not a good thing to do. However, I do think that Jai Opetaia being a southpaw could give him a good fight, because one thing that I've learned about Marius Bradis, Tony Bellew, even Artur Beterbiev, those guys that were his height or shorter, Derek Chisora's added, they give him more of a challenge. He has a more challenging fight with guys that are shorter than him or his height. See, Usyk, we've learned, he kind of puts you in the mind of Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao was able, being a southpaw, quick, nimble, reflexes on point, right? Everything on fleek. He was able to get in, get out, land, and his reflexes were always a step or two ahead of those bigger guys like Oscar De La Hoya, like Miguel Cotto, like Antonio Margarito. Those were bigger guys compared to Manny Pacquiao, just like Joshua, Dubois, Fury were bigger guys than Usyk, right? But when it came back to Pacquiao, when it came to him fighting someone like Juan Manuel Marquez, which was his height, he had trouble. He had challenges, and ultimately he got knocked out, right? 3 out of 4. You know, those fights were won by Pacquiao, but Pacquiao eventually got knocked out December 8th, 2012, right? I think it could be possible for Usyk to reach his demise based on those same rules, okay? Based on the same issues. The same issues are, you have guys like Jai Opetaia, 6'2", you know, 6 foot. Artur Beterbiev, 6 foot tall. He dropped them twice in the amateurs. These type of guys, I think, pose more of a challenge and a threat to Oleksandr Usyk than the big boys. He's proven that he can beat the big boys, but the big boys don't have a gas tank. They have to punch down at Usyk, you know, and Usyk's just quicker, being a guy that's coming from a smaller weight class up, and he still is able to maintain his speed and reflexes, which makes him dangerous and very, very effective and successful. So, you know, Eddie, of course, let's call it a buck. Eddie, that's his fighter, Jai Opetaia, so he is supposed to say that. But other than that, these are the reasons why Jai Opetaia could pose a threat to Usyk. Well, being a southpaw, I haven't seen a southpaw in there with Usyk, being a southpaw. So that's a southpaw versus a southpaw. Also someone that has power and speed. Now, here's the thing, though. We don't know how Jai Opetaia is going to perform at heavyweight, and he still wants to get the accolades, to follow the footsteps of Oleksandr Usyk. So we don't even really know if he will be still fighting at heavyweight as the pound-for-pound king to even get the opportunity to fight Usyk. So Jai Opetaia, by the time he gets there, by the time Zerto, finally gets his mind together or his balls intact to take the challenge to fight Jai Opetaia, and that may be too far down the line where Oleksandr Usyk is signing off, where Jai Opetaia is signing in at heavyweight, right? So that is another factor that we talk about. However, the slight beam of hope would be that Oleksandr Usyk is still fighting well. We've seen what he can do with guys that he's already fought. This is more impressive, him beating Danny Dubois, easier because it shows that he ain't went nowhere, meaning he ain't slipped like people thought he is, or he ain't slipped to the point where he still can't compete. Well, what about in 2026 in August? How about in May of 2027, at 40 years of age? Will he still have those reflexes? And that's a big question mark. We can say and try to predict, oh, yeah, he will, but we don't know that. And even if Jai Opetaia does make it and he does fight Jai Opetaia, because the rules will still apply for Jai Opetaia if he gets all the belts, and he has to in order for the WBO's rules for him and allowing him to move up to be that automatic mandatory challenger for the WBO belt. And if Usyk still has all the belts intact, he can still fight Oleksandr Usyk. I get where Eddie's going with that, but it's like if Jai Opetaia beats him and he's slipped a bit, should and will Jai Opetaia get full credit? You see what I'm saying? So, when we were asking that question with Daniel, if Daniel would have beat him this past weekend, and, we got an answer to that question. But nonetheless, Usyk is constantly getting older. However, there is hope that he will still be able to compete based on his lifestyle, based on the way he lives his life, based on his training and perseverance, based on his discipline levels and faith in God. So, yeah, I do think, me personally, I do think he would still be able to give anybody a go, including Jai Opetaia. But you guys tell me what you think of Jai Opetaia fighting Oleksandr Usyk. Is he the guy to take out Usyk? Of course, please subscribe. I'll leave a poll in my post community, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.